Let me know if this has ever happened to you. You are with a patient and they tell you how excited they are about a treatment that they got at another med spa. And the whole reason is because they didn't know that you had that service. Or maybe you see them posted on their social media page that they got this treatment or they bought this skincare product, whatever the case may be. Or you hear secondhand from another person that one of your favorite patients got a treatment from someone else that you offer. It's such a gut punch. It's such a, what am I doing wrong? Why didn't you get it from me? I could have helped you from that. What is my team not doing or saying? And at the end of the day, I don't want this happening to you. It's a horrible feeling. And I really studied this and come up with the top 3 reasons why your patients went to another med spa for a treatment that you provide. So let's dive into that right away. Before I do, in the chat box, I want you to put a 1 in the chat box if yes, in fact, this has happened to you before, that a patient has told you or you've heard from another person that they got a treatment from another med spa when you thought you had that patient locked down. I'm seeing it everywhere. It's the worst feeling ever, and I want to help you so that doesn't happen again. So the very first thing is to have an aesthetic interest questionnaire. And the reason why this is so important that you have this with every single appointment. Now notice I didn't say just new patients, but every single appointment, new or existing, is because on that aesthetic interest questionnaire, you're listing all of the pain points and challenges that you can solve. And when they come in, it's thinking like when you go to the doctor, has anything changed? Yes or no kind of thing. And it's very quick and you don't have to scan it, record it. It doesn't need to be in your electronic records. This is not something you have to hold on to. This is a conversation starter so that when they say, yes, I'm having fatigue, then you can talk about your HRT, or maybe like, yes, I'm wanting to reduce fat reduction. And you can tell them about your Emsculpt Neo and your Ozempic medical weight loss program that you are doing. But here's the thing, is too often we only focus when people are new patients in that intake form. And with a new patient, they're not always ready to tell you every pain point they have and everything that you can help them with. They come in for one specific thing. They might have to warm up with you before they open up all the things that they're being challenged with. In addition to that, every single day we're aging, we're exposed to sun, our weight fluctuates, our hormone fluctuates. And so while the last time I came in to see you, I may not have been interested in cool sculpting. But this time I am, because I just booked vacation to Mexico and I'm thinking about having to be in a swimsuit for a whole week in front of all my girlfriends. And I'm thinking, okay, now's the time to get my body ready for summer. So now I'm open to talking to you about your cool sculpting. And so that is why every single time you have to have the aesthetic interest questionnaire so you can remind them all of the things that you can help them with. Because that very first time that they come in, you give them maybe a brochure, all the services you do, you give them a great tour. You think, yep, great, check that box, great. But it may be a month, a year, 5 years, or a decade until they're ready for some of those other things that you provide. So that's why the aesthetic interest questionnaire is absolutely imperative. And it really is not something that your team should complain about having to add into your system and protocol, because when the patient walks in, they get the clipboard with the aesthetic interest questionnaire. It literally takes them less than 30 seconds to scan it, check the boxes of the challenges or pain points that they want to explore with you. And when the front desk hands that off to the provider, she's literally walking back in the room and being like, oh, she wants to talk about getting volume in her lips and cheeks today, even though she's just here for some Botox. That's the conversation starter. And literally that's the end of the use of the aesthetic interest questionnaire, so that you're not relying on having to do a head-to-toe consultation every single time. So the conversation starter that's going to help prevent you from losing those patients to other people. The next thing is you have to train your entire team, whether they're a provider, a laser technician, an esthetician, or the front desk, that they're just enough dangerous to be able to snip out when a patient needs a service, even if they don't necessarily provide it or do the service themselves. For example, if I'm laying on the table for an hour getting custom pumpkin facial in October, right, that everyone does, and I'm talking with my esthetician, and I start telling her about how I'm gonna go on a vacation and I wanna get swimsuit ready. Well, she may not be the one that's doing the body contouring, but she absolutely should be, hey, you want to go talk to Sue, our body contouring specialist, because she could totally help you get ready for that, for getting into that swimsuit. And you want to make sure you do it now. Summer bodies are made in the winter, and she needs to be able to be just enough dangerous to recognize an opportunity to make an introduction over to another department. She doesn't have to know how to do body contouring. She doesn't have to go in depth of how it works. She just needs to be able to pick up enough information to be able to make that recommendation. And I see that commonly a challenge between, depending on your state, estheticians working with injectors and vice versa, because their expertise in their lane, and they stay within that. But even though they may never be an injector, they need to know enough information to be able to recognize that that's what the patient needs and wants, and we need to get you scheduled to talk to our injector. You got to train on it though. It's not something that you just invest training on if they do that specific service. Same with the front desk. The front desk isn't doing any services, but they should be just enough dangerous to be able to pick up that information, whether it's on the phone, at checkout, when you're greeting them. You have to have your antennas up at all times. And the third thing is you have to incentivize your team. In a perfect world, it's always we do what's best in interest of the patient in the med spa. But at the end of the day, it's hard for a person, unless they have skin in the game, to go above and beyond, especially if that is not a system that they stepped into, where collaboration, education, cross-promoting between departments was not a part of your culture and system to begin with. For change to take place, to achieve, oftentimes it's going to require incentivizing your team to do that. Let me give you an example. The hourly rate for an injector versus an esthetician varies greatly. And the esthetician really relies on tips. So if I am an esthetician, I'm afraid that if I refer them over to injectables or some of those more advanced lasers, they're not going to come back to me on the esthetician side, or the injectors aren't going to return the favor and refer them back over to me for maintenance, and I'm losing my tip. What incentivizes them or makes the desire to want to work and collaborate as a team? Because we have that scarcity mindset that I want to keep my patient. So it's either because they lack training, right verbiage, and the second thing is they're just not incentivized, and they all go together. So you got to have that aesthetic interest questionnaire to start the conversation, to understand what their needs are, to be able to tell them all the tools in your tool belt. And the second thing is you got to train them, and not train them how to do the treatment, but how to have the conversation, how to refer them, how to start the conversation. And the third thing is you got to incentivize them. You got to show them what is in it for them. Last little bonus here, or call it the fourth one, I guess, is that you have to have accountability in play. So when you're training them, you can't just tell them once and expect it's going to happen consistently thereafter. You have to role play. I love recording people because that's the quickest way to get someone to really learn something. A scripting of verbiage is if they have to record themselves. It just terrifies people, but it's such a good thing. And then also ask them to teach other people, because for you to be able to teach other people something, you really have to know it yourself without looking like a fool. So having people teach others is a really good place to hold them accountable for learning it as well. You got to have one-on-ones. You have to have one-on-ones to offer, to not only have accountability, but that consistent feedback loop to talking through and looking at where their revenue is coming from, what services, what kind of conversations and treatment plans are they developing, so that you can talk to them about opportunities of adding in injectables or ascending them up into some of the more advanced lasers, or making sure that you are including maintenance on the esthetician side after they do injectables and or those high-end laser devices. So they need to be able to ascend up the ladder and then descend down the ladder as well, because you are going to get better transformational results, and then you're going to prolong those results with a really good maintenance. So if you can show your team how in the end everyone is going to win, because you are going to be both referring one another to the different departments. But oftentimes we see it only work one way, or even no way for that matter. But it has to be a conscious effort. You have to train your team, you have to establish that in your culture, and you have to incentivize. So those are my top 3 reasons why your patients went to another med spa for another treatment that you offer. It's the worst feeling in the world. And I promise you, if you institute an aesthetic interest questionnaire, and I'd be happy to help you with that, reach out to us. We'll give you the template. It's so easy to create and implement. The hard part is learning how to use it in your consultation. And I'm confident that I can help you guys launch with that. Train them and incentivize your team to collaborate, work together, establish it in your culture. The thing is that most people have some kind of form of that for new patients, but really it's that returning patient that's even more important, because oftentimes they're even more willing to invest and spend and listen to your recommendations when you discuss how you can solve the problem or challenge that they have. So absolutely, that's great. And it doesn't take, it really will not add on to your consultation time. In fact, it could help you, right? Instead of spending time trying to pull information out of them, maybe it could even save you time in the consultation room, because it'll all be right there for you. So I hope that you take these tips, put some things into action, train your team, have conscious conversations about it, and you're going to hear that less and less. And ultimately the goal would be to just completely remove that from ever hearing that again, because I know what a gut punch that is.